cooking with me. Hi, Abby. Anyway, so you want to make a lasagna. Let's see, where to start? Hi guys. Two big things make your meat / filling, and of course make your noodles. You can multitask and do them both at the same time, but this is very dangerous. What I like to do is cook the meat first, because you can get that done and put it aside, and it's not going to get cold, it'll stay warm. And then move the noodles over like onto the hot burner. If you got a burner that's a hot, then do the noodles, because then when you're done with the noodles and you rinse your noodles and get them ready, then you're ready to build your pan. And then and also if you do the noodles second, they won't be sitting in there in the colander forever sticking to each other. So be sure you rinse them, but then once you go from rinse to assemble, you don't have to worry, they don't have time to get stuck together. Okay, noodles. I just use the regular, gotta boil them kind. There's a kind that you can go directly into the oven with. I've never done that. Seems kind of weird, so I always do the boil kind, either regular or whole grain. Either way. How many you need to do depends on the pan. So if you do, say, a glass 9 by 12, you can probably get away with 3 per layer, because they'll get bigger as you cook them. They'll swell up a little bit. So you're going to have a basement, a ground floor, and a roof. So you'll have 3 layers, so either 9. If I do the big pan like this, I actually need to do 15. It takes 4 strips to go across and 1 across at the end for each floor. So 9 to 15. When you do the noodles, you can put the noodles right into the pan, then put in a bit of water and start them going. You don't have to boil it first. It actually goes quicker this way. The ends will start to soften. So as the water starts to boil, then you can actually bend them carefully and get them to wrap into the pan. So then you can boil the whole noodles. But you can get them started like that on an angle and just have your water in there. Simplest thing for the filling, take an onion of your choice, red, yellow, don't matter. You know, skin it, chop it up fairly finely, probably chop. A little bit of olive oil drizzled in your pan. Don't need a lot, but just a bit to give it a little something to cook. A little scoop, probably a spoon of garlic. I use minced garlic. Get that going first. Get that sizzling a little bit. The onion will lose a lot of its zip as it cooks. So if it's making you cry when you cut it, by the time it's cooked, really won't do anything. So then chuck in a pound of meat. The best one I like the best when I used to eat that kind was mild Italian sausage. There's a spicy Italian sausage, which you probably wouldn't like unless you want to go a little spicy. But mild Italian sausage is good just because it's got that good Italian-y flavor. You can do just plain stuff like ground chicken, ground turkey, or even ground beef. But Italian sausage will give you more flavor. So anyway, get that going. You're just going to cook up and brown the meat so it'll get mixed in with the onions and the garlic. So all that'll mix together. And then you can hit it with sauce, whatever you like. I use this arrabbiata sauce, which is also spicy. This is a 24-ounce bottle. This works well. If I chuck this in with the filling, it gives me enough liquidy, meaty stuff to spread on all 3 layers, the basement, the ground floor, and on the roof. You definitely need to have enough saucy stuff left to put on the roof, because if you just put cheese on the roof, it's gonna get dry. You will be amazed how liquidy this can be and how much it'll all soak together when you bake it in the oven with the noodles. So, whatever red sauce you like, just make sure you got enough, maybe even have an extra bottle just in case. You need to put a little extra on the roof. So okay, so you get that cooked first, put it aside, boil the noodles, and then you're ready to assemble. The other thing you can do on the side is take a bowl, about yay big, and get yourself a tub of ricotta cheese. You can get the low-fat ricotta. It's low-fat, low-salt. You won't notice, it's all part of the thing. It'll be fine. Just gives it a nice little texture. So you dump the whole tub of ricotta in the bowl. Take one egg, crack the egg, and then the other thing you mix in there is cheese, Parmesan, or you can get, like I get this fancy bag of shaved Parmesan. It's shaved Parmesan and Romano and Asiago all together. You take some of that and you mix that, like with a fork, you mix that all together. And I like to do that early on as well, so it gets a little warm, because it's easier to mix the Romano up when it gets a little warm. And then it'll be easier, it'll be a little more gooey and easier to spread on the floors when you're ready. So you'll have that bowl of stuff, you'll have the meat, and then the noodles to put in there. And cheeses. So also get some bags of cheese. Get your provolone and mozzarella, or just mozzarella. Or I find a bag like this, it's a 6 cheese Italian blend. That works nice for your white cheese. You might need 2 bags of that just in case. And then 1 bag I like to get, just because it's Wisconsin, of a blend of cheddar mix for the roof. So what we will do, once you got all that stuff, is you'll put in your bottom layer of cooked noodles, obviously at this point. So you'll lay them in, they'll probably overlap a little bit, that's fine. And then you scoop in some meat and spread that around. Then you take some of your ricotta blend that you've made, and you distribute some of that in there. And then you can put some white cheese and maybe even some a little extra Parmesan on the basement layer. The other thing you can do, if you dare, if you want to get a bottle of Alfredo, you can also just scoop, don't have to cook it, just take some Alfredo and scoop some little layers in each floor as well, just for a little extra different flavor in there. So once you do that, so you have your meat, your cheeses, and so on, you just have to judge how thick to make that, because then you're going to put your second layer of noodles on. Then you're going to basically do the same thing. Oh, don't forget, 1 spice. While you're doing this, get yourself a little bottle, a blend of Italian seasoning. It's got like, what's it got in here? Italian stuff. Does it tell me what it's got in here? Oregano, I can't read that word, thyme, rosemary, and sage. So it's an Italian blend, you can buy these. And you can always sprinkle a little bit on each layer, and especially on the top when we're done. That's nice to do for a little color. If you buy bland meat, if you just buy chicken or turkey or ground beef, then definitely put this on the meat while you're cooking it fairly liberally, and maybe some salt and pepper too, just for good flavor. That'll make other meat taste a little Italian-y. Okay, so we did our first layer, we do our second layer, pretty much the same. Meat, ricotta. You can pretty much use up your ricotta just on the first 2, basement, ground floor. Put your white cheese and maybe some Parmesan and some seasoning on the main floor, and then you get the roof on there. So now again, make sure you've got a little bit of this left with the red sauce. You put the roof on, and you want to put enough on there just so it's all wet and nice and coated, because it won't get dry then when it bakes. And then you can put your last layer of cheese on. Now, of course, the roof layer of cheese is the most important, because that's the nice gooey cheesy at the top. So I usually have a little bit of my white cheese left, my 6 Italian blend or mozzarella, and then some cheddar on top, keep a nice cheddary chewiness. And then even a little bit of like the Parmesan flaky stuff. I'll put a little bit of that across, and then some Italian seasoning, and you're ready to go into the oven. Which reminds me, at the very beginning, I should have said, when you start cooking, turn on the oven, 350 degrees, and get it warming up, because by the time it's warmed up, you'll be ready to bake. So once you got this built, Hopefully you built it so it doesn't go off the top of your pan. So judge your thickness. Cover it with tin foil. So tin foil to start. Into the 350 oven, 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, take the tin foil off, put her back in, and you're gonna go for about 15 or 20 minutes. You can keep an eye on it. You're just looking for it to get a little bit, goldeny brown, the cheesy getting a little brown down the top. And you should see it starting to bubble up and boiling up from all around the edges and so on. And that's it. So then you're done. But then the real secret is, once it's done, take it out, just let it sit on top and start cooling. Of course, you're in Florida, you can't put it in the cold garage and get free refrigeration. So for you, put it on the stove, let it cool for a good long time. Probably let it sit out, put the tin foil back on, let it sit and cool. And if you're gonna eat it that day, probably eat it at least a half hour later, let it cool and start to coagulate. But the best thing to do is to let it cool for half hour or an hour and then put it in the fridge and eat it the next day. And the next day and the next day. It gets better as it goes. So once you cut out a chunk the next day, microwave it. I usually use like 70%, so it's not just full blast microwaving, but do like 3-4 minutes at 70%, so it kind of heats up a little bit slower, and that works really good. So anyway, that's it. That's a cooking with me. Hopefully it'll work. Let me know how it goes. You can also substitute veggies for meat, of course, always. Anyway, good luck.